Chapter 10, Six Little Germans. Okay, Google, turn on reading lamp.
All right, turning the reading lamp on.
Not that Mother didn't have her hands full. Excuse me. The day Father and Jancy drove in with a wagon full of pale, frightened children, and for weeks afterward, the house was in an uproar most of the time. Lottie, Mary, Pauline, Hans, Paul, and Johann sat in the wagon like six bedraggled little birds, looking with eyes far too large for their small peaked faces at this crowd of husky strangers. Strangers laughing, as no one in Germany had laughed for a very long time. What is there to laugh about? Their eyes seemed to ask, while their pale lips began to twitch with the first sign of a wholesale crying bout. Excuse me, I'm so tired. It had not been so very bad in the town where the train had left them, because there was a man who spoke their language. In the village, there was a very old little man in the funny little store who gave them candies. Ugh. Excuse me. Oh. In the village, there was a very little old man in the funny little store who gave them candies and the few words of German he could remember. Driving along the lane with the large old trees on both sides had been nice, because no one never knew where it would end, and one wanted to find out. But now, there were no German words to greet them. The candy was gone. There was only big, husky, laughing strangers at the end of the road, babbling in a strange, loud language. Grigory, Nikolai, Sergei, Stana, and the two Peters, because they were the biggest of all, crowded everyone away from the wagon. Little German, come to Big Russian, roared Grigory in his friendliest roar, which meant the loudest, holding out hands that looked like giant's paws to the little Germans. That was the last straw. Lottie started to howl, and then the whole wagon full dissolved in tears, some silent and others very noisy. Ugh. Ugga, ugga, ugga. So tired. Did not sleep well last night. Clip that out if you don't want to hear it. Mama was the only word everyone understood. Come, darlings, cried Mother, on the verge of tears herself. I am Mama now. She pointed to herself, Mama. Well, so am I. Mari fought through the crowd, holding up a 3-year-old baby Panny, hoping that her smiling face would reassure the others. But baby Panny discovered her love, Goji, and started to howl for him to hold her. I've nursed quite a bunch of my own, little grandma pushed her head between Sergei and Nikolai, and I am not too old to take 1 or 2 more. Here, you big bears. Let me through, Lily's mother, with the first show of real spirit since she came. Poke thin elbows into Russian sides, bulging with muscle. You are enough to frighten any child out of his wits, roaring at them like lions. Sergei was insulted. Sergei, no roar. Little German, no afraid. Little German love big Russian, huh? He asked with a grin that spreads from ear to ear, tickling a shaking little German into fresh convulsions. Something way in the back of Lily's mind was stirring. She had German lessons in the finishing school, and now she tried to drag words out of the oblivion into which they had fallen. She marched up to Grigori and gave him a downright order. You pick me up. High. Higher. Now hold still. Here. Horin. You little... Zuhorin, she shrieked over the din. One German word acted like oil on troubled waters, and 6 pairs of streaming eyes over 6 open mouths paid attention. Nick Hewlin, Dumkov, Nick Hewlin, Gute, Lute, Milch, Schinken, Brot, Alles, im Haus, Komm, fressen. Don't howl, silly ones, good people, milk, ham, bread, everything in the house. Come and eat. Well, I never, Grandma beamed in the sudden silence, her head caught between Sergei and Nikolai. They are beginning to smile, upon my soul they are. Sure, Nikolai beamed, back at the first pale smile in one little German face. Nick Hule. Milch. Marie and Pauline sniffed a wet and hopeful sniff because they had no handkerchiefs. And even the name of milk called for an unhampered nose. In this lull of the storm, Mother got another inning. Mama, she repeated, pointing at the other women in turn. Another sniff, another smile. Sex mama for sex. Lily's idea was to tell them while the telling was good, that there were 6 mothers for 6 children. But children wouldn't come in German, so she called the 6 prospective mothers for inspection. Mother, Grandma, Mari, Aunt Kormos, Kate. She pointed each one out and then jabbed at herself. Lily. And Lily. Hans was really looking at her now. There was a real smile on his face. Danke, Lily. Whoa. Wo ist der Schinken? What's all this palaver? I want to know, Grandma demanded. Lily slipped off Grigori's arm. He wants to know where the ham is. I said there was ham and bread and milk in the house. Common. Come." She waved to the new hopeful little crowd. They came into the house, following Lily between two lines of small and big strangers. Lily stopped in the middle of the kitchen. "Schinken, Brot, Milch." She swept her arm toward the loaded tables, and as if she were a fairy with a magic wand. "Ach!" And that was the sound there was out of 6 little Germans until there was no ham, no bread, no milk left. They were oblivious to all the strangers who crowded into the kitchen and stood around beaming, whispering among themselves. "If you don't stop them, Mother," Father chuckled after a long while, "they'll come apart at the seams." But she only smiled. "Let them. I'll sew them up again, with more." "Little German sure has big belly," Nikolai beamed with admiration. "Little German, like little Russian. Eat like a little pig." "All same," Kate winked at him. Grigori heard her. He gazed up at the strings of sausage hanging from the ceiling. He had heard of Kate's love for sausage. Jancy had told him that Kate had eaten a couple of yards of them the first night she came to the farm. "Now," he said, bursting with suppressed laughter, "sure, little German, little Russian, all same. Eat like little pig, little devil, no same. She eat like 2 little pig." Grigori, no. His own witticism seemed so funny to him that he let out a roar of laughter, and the forks clattered out of surprised little German's hands. "Shut up, Grigori!" Kate pinched his arm. "Oh, the saints preserve us. They're at it again. See what you've done?" Grigori clapped his hand against his mouth and mumbled between his fingers, "Me fix." Lily rose to the occasion. "Nick Hewlin, don't howl." She pointed directly at Hans, who seemed the calmest. Hans nodded, half smiling, and spoke reassuringly to the others. After a suspicious glance or two, and a few trembling sighs, they proceeded to finish what was left on the table. In the meantime, Grigori herded Stana, Sergei, Nikolai, and the 2 Peters out of the room, whispering them to them in Russian. It must have been a good whisper, because amusement lay thick on their faces. In short time, like muffled explosions, proclaimed their return. Pushing everyone aside, they filled in. 6 little German faces lifted apprehensively to break into smiles, because in big Russian arms were things far smaller and weaker than the little Germans, and even these small and weak things didn't seem afraid. The 2 Peters had baby lambs. Nikolai had kittens peeking out of both hands, and so had Stana and Sergei. In the capacious nest of Grigori's interlaced fingers, downy yellow baby chicks were swarming. Just came the mother cat, brought up the tail end of the procession, her own tail waving a question mark of friendliness. After the first surprised grumble of, "Let's bring in the cows and horses too," even Jancy had to admit that Grigori had found the shortest way into little German hearts. Because in a miraculously short time, 6 big Russians and 6 crooning, smiling little Germans were in a huddle on the floor, protecting downy baby chicks from the playful but far from downy paws of tiny kittens, and both chicks and kittens from awkward, prancing feet of baby lambs. "Who would have thought of that?" sighed Jancy, when a chorus of giggles and booming laughs filled the kitchen, and wet sniffs sounded peaceful, like raindrops falling off trees after the rain had stopped. Grigori, quite busy with 2 kittens sharpening claws in his beard, and Marie making it worse by pulling their tails, took the time to answer Jancy. "Grigori think," he mumbled. "Grigori know. That little thing love little thing. All same, Jancy. Little Russian, little German, little Hungarian. All same to Grigori." "Sure," Sergei nodded wisely and tickled the same little German into laughter, who an hour ago had howled at the sight of him. Comrade, huh? This was another word they all knew, young and old, Hungarian, German, and Russian. And as they repeated the word, the old kitchen seemed to glow with the spirit of it. Comrade, friend. But in spite of the good food, the little things, the sunshine, and care surrounding them, the little Germans had a hard time with homesickness. There were many evenings where bedtime was a bedlam of sobs and tantrums and a flood of tears. All the tenderness of 6 volunteer mamas, 6 clowning Russians, all fathers and grandpa smiles and sometimes shouts. Jancy's wholehearted friendliness couldn't make up for the mamas and papas so far away in Germany. Letters came and went, marking the passing weeks of summer and fall. Letters to Germany were written by Hans, Paul, and Johann. They wrote for the little girls, too. Slowly, these letters grew more cheerful, more voluble, and as the infinite small details of life on this friendly place became the life of 6 little Germans. These people, wrote Hans in the late fall of 1970, do not hate anyone. In our school in Berlin, we were told that Russians and English and French are monsters. That is not true, Mother. The 6 Russians, especially my best friend Stana, are like German men, like Papa. They like to laugh and play with us, and I like to work. Maybe the French and English men are the same. Our teacher told us a lie about the Jews, too. Herr Mandelbaum, the storekeeper in the village, is not selfish and rich and bad. He is very old and small, and he has lost 2 sons in the war. Herr Nagy, Jancy's father, is giving him money now to pay for goods in the store because Herr Mandelbaum has no more left. He bought war bonds to help the country. If he is helping Hungary, isn't he helping Germany too? We are allies, and nobody in the village pays him for anything, and he does not keep books. He just remembers what people owe him, Jancy says, but now he often forgets because people have no money. I cannot understand Hungarian very well yet, but Jancy can make me understand many things. I do not hate Russians now, Mother, and I think that Jews are very kind and good. When I grow up, I want to be a teacher and teach what Grigory is always saying. He says that people are all the same in Russia and Germany and Hungary, and that we are all brothers. It's true, Mother. Why did our teacher in Berlin lie to us? I have asked Herr Nagy, but he said our teacher must have been a stupid man. If he is stupid, Mother, why is he a teacher? But sometimes I think that maybe Herr Nagy and Grigory are wrong, because if we are all brothers, why is there a war? Please, Mother, tell me who is right. When the letter came with the answer, the 3 blonde heads of Hans, Paul, and Johann bent over it easily. Maybe this would tell them who is right. My dear little Hans, the letter said, I am glad that you are well and happy. Please tell Herr Nagy and your Russian friends that a German mother is praying for them every night. Tell them that I want to thank them for teaching my boy to love instead of hate. Forget all your teacher in Berlin has told you. Be very good, little Hans, to deserve this kindness and love all. Kindness and love of those good people. Papa is still in the war in France. Here is a snapshot he sent last month. This is all I can send you for Christmas this year, and all my love. Weihnachten. Christmas. Johann sighed, and there might have been another cry, but Jancy called in from the yard. Hey, the horses are waiting. Let's have some fun. Pretty good, he conceded as he surveyed the almost perfect posture of Hans, Johann, and Paul on horseback. Father had let him bring 3 broken-in horses from the corrals and teach the boys to ride. "I'll make horsemen out of you yet. Come on, we'll ride to the village and back. Sit up straight. You, question mark." He glowered at Paul. "Toes in, elbows hugging your sides, head up, there." "Jawal." Johann grinned at him. "Jawal, Herr Brigadier General Jancy." "Jawohl, jawohl," grinned at him. "Jawohl, Herr Brigadier General Jancy. None of that. I'm not a soldier. I'm a horseman. And speak Hungarian to me, or you'll stay home." "You tell him, Jancy, you tell him," came the voice of Nikolai from the barn. "He sit on horse like cow." All hump. "He speak like wagon wheel on stone." All noise. There he was, gesticulating wildly, but the mile-wide grin on his face belied his scolding words. They all loved the little Germans, Jancy most of all, especially these boys to whom a horse was a prancing miracle on 4 legs, and Jancy, master of the wildest of horses, a hero. He could show off to this uncritical audience who did not know enough to notice that when the horse stood on its hind legs as if it were trying to throw him off, it was Jancy who pulled the reins. He couldn't get away with this when Kate was around because she called his bluff, but the German boys shared his attitude of mild scorn toward mere girls, and if Kate tried to criticize their hero, 3 blank faces looked through her as if she were thin air, and that made Kate simply furious. "You wait, you just wait, you conceited little monkeys. I'll show you, and you, big smarty, just you wait." One day, a bright sunny day in early December, she held a long, secret conversation with Mother. "There'll be no living with them if we women don't do something. Just this once more, Auntie, please," she pleaded when Mother didn't show the proper cooperation. "Let me ride once more the way I used to, like a boy, and then I won't mind being an almost grown-up girl. Just to show them." "All right, lamb," Mother kissed her. "Go ahead, and I'll keep my fingers crossed, hoping that you will win, and that there won't be any broken bones to mend." She sighed to herself. "Humph. I know I will. On Milky? There isn't a horse in Jancy's herd who can beat Milky." "I'll make it more interesting," Mother proposed. "The one who wins can have all the fresh sausages he can hold for once." "It'll be a she, not a he, Auntie. You wait and see." There was more secret conversation with Grigori, and so when it was time for Jancy and the boys to leave, they had a long ride planned for the day. 5 horses came prancing out of the stables. Barsiny, 3 chestnuts for the German boys, and Milky. Snow White, beautiful with the red saddle and reins studded with brass. Milky pawed like a colt. "Now then," Kate marched up to the surprised gang of so superior small men. She looked like a tall, lovely boy herself, wearing Jancy's pleated pants and short, braided jacket. "I'll race you to the end of the lane and back. The one who gets home first can have sausages." She held out her arms in a wide gesture. Yards and yards and yards. This was one weakness the boy shared with her. Wurste. "Sausages," beamed Hans, Paul, and Johann. "Yes, you can watch me eat them. I'll show you what a girl can do." Kate was in the saddle with one smooth leap. "Humph," Jancy said. "We'll show you, smarty," but he wasn't so sure as he sounded. Kate could ride almost as well as he, and there was no denying that. Hadn't he taught her himself? Now he was pinning his hope on the almost, and the fact that Kate hadn't been riding very much, just enough to keep Milky exercised. Word had gone around that something exciting was going on, and everyone came to see them start off. Grigori bellowed according to Kate's directions. 1, 2, go! The go sounded like an explosion, and spurs were not needed to make the horses go. They tore out of the yard and the lane and out of the sight between the trees. How they rode! Kate was taking long, gasping breaths of joy. The boys were shouting. Jancy laughed aloud as he had not laughed since he was a boy of 13. And he was ahead, way ahead by the time they neared the end of the lane. Those boys could ride too. The conceited little rascals, Kate groaned to herself. Milky, she gasped as she made a wide circle around the last trees in the lane. Milky, help me. Run, Milky, run, run. This is the last time, Milky. I'll be a big girl tomorrow, I promise Auntie. And she was talking in gasps, and maybe Milky understood, because the distance between Jancy and Kate seemed to shorten, and now she was passing 1, 2, 3 horses. Come, dear Milky. Oh, come, Milky, dear Milky, Kate cried as the white horse gleamed up between the trees. Milky's hoofs were pounding the frozen road furiously, but Jancy was still way ahead. Whee! Came the ear-splitting tin whistle scream of a girl who was to be big, almost grown up. Kate tomorrow. Whee! This time Jancy wasn't pulling the reins when Barsany reared to paw the air with his thrashing front hoofs. Down, Barsany, he shouted and tightened the hold of his knees. In a moment, he was leaping ahead again, but that one moment had been enough for Kate and Milky. They flew by him, through the gate and into the yard. Jancy was on their heels, but Kate had won. Four panting, defeated boys and disheveled, boyish-looking girl and a disheveled, boyish-looking girl stood glaring at one another. That wasn't fair, gasped Jancy. You screamed. I got ahead of them without screaming. I got ahead of them without screaming, Kate retorted hotly. And you had spurs on. I didn't, so there. Was it a fair race? She turned to the three boys. Yeah, a fair race, Hans admitted very reluctantly. He shrugged and turned to Paul and Johann. Kate has sausage. Keen worst for uns. Who said so? I don't want any, Kate said unexpectedly. You eat the sausages, boys, and you can ride awfully well for little boys. She ran into the house to change, perfectly satisfied now to grow up. Beginning tomorrow, because Hans had shouted after her, you ride better than many boys. After this, Christmas seemed only a few sleeps away. Grigori had started counting days by sleeps, and now they were all doing it. Johann sleep 5, then Christmas. Pauline sleep 2, Christmas. Then there were no more sleeps left, and it was Christmas Eve again. The 4th Christmas of the war. The old kitchen glowed once more with candles on the tree, their mellow light shining onto many more faces than ever before. There were toys for the little ones under the tree, made by Grandpa, Father, and the Russians. There were letters and photographs from Germany, France, Russia. It was a haven, a charmed spot, this old kitchen. Old walls embracing people who had been blown there by a terrible storm, giving them refuge, peace, and happiness for a little while. Perhaps another storm would blow them far apart, but now they were together. After the candles had burned down and it was time to go to bed, Hans reached up to the shelf and took down his father's picture. Gute Nacht, lieber Papa, schlaf wohl. Good night, dear father, sleep well, he whispered. He didn't know then, and he wouldn't know for many weeks, that his father was sleeping under a white blanket of snow somewhere in France. Tomorrow, chapter 11. the singing tree, the eponymous chapter of the book.